Welcome back to the Jon Krawczynski Show. He's Jon Krawczynski from The Athletic. I'm Jim Suhan from TalkNorth.com and the Star Tribune. This is our Timberwolves show at TalkNorth.com. We do it on YouTube as well as via audio. You can find it at your favorite podcast app or at TalkNorth.com. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio.
This holiday season, bring a little extra magic home with Aquarius Home Services, your authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Enjoy worry-free water that makes every moment shine, sparkling dishes, softer laundry, and refreshing worry-free drinking water. Right now, save up to 25% on a Connecticut whole home water treatment system. Schedule your free water analysis at AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius in Connecticut, earning the right to be recommended.
Hey, this is Randy Shaver. Along with Kevin Gorg, we host the show Fantasy Huddle on Talk North. Each week, we're going to break down the matchups for the NFL season and try to give you the best chance to win your fantasy football games each and every week. Join us for Fantasy Huddle on Talk North.
And the Jon Krawczynski Show is also sponsored by Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood. They're one of our presenting sponsors. All right, John, let's start off with Naz Reid today. He's gotten into the flow. He had a really good game against a bad Mavericks team on Monday night. Do you think part of this is just kind of getting back to some normalcy after the tragedy of this summer?
Yeah, I really do, Jim. So, known him for 7 years now. He's, he said all the right things going into this season and even through the first part of the season, in just like, I feel fine. My teammates have been there for me. I'm moving through it, kind of dealing with everything. But, you can say everything that you want, but I just don't think that there's any way possible that he has not had a clouded mind early on here. I do think that for him getting back to the normalcy of being in a basketball routine and being around his teammates and coaches is good therapy for him after he lost his sister in that shooting and, about a month before training camp. But there's just no way that in the back of his head, in his heart, like there's just not something that's off, because we have seen his play on the court prior to the last few games. He did not look like himself. He was not as active and aggressive offensively, but also defensively. He was slower. He was not competing. He was not doing all of the things that Naz Reid always does. And so, could it have been just a little bit of a funk to start the season? Yeah, maybe, but he would not really put it out there for himself for an excuse, but it just was like, look, this guy's been through an incredibly traumatic experience, and it is reasonable to believe that all of that trauma that he continues to deal with is trickling into his work life as it would any normal human being.
In terms of basketball, how different is his experience being on the court now that he's not coming in with Alexander Walker, and he is playing with different people?
Yeah, I mean, one of the cool things about listening to Naz talk about his role now is all of the ownership that he is taking with that second unit. Now, he signed the huge contract this summer, and he did so knowing that there was not a clear path to a starting spot. And, he loves being here. He knows he's a folk hero here. He wants to win. All of the things that are kind of rise above individual goals were there for him. But it's still, at the same time, every player wants to have a big role. And, kind of getting that chance to be a starter at this point in his career, I'm sure was attractive to him. So in the absence of having that starting role, you have to look at other ways to make this important. And what is clearly happened for Naz, and then, what the coaches and what his teammates have put on him is that, look, you are not starting, but you now, with Nickeil Alexander-Walker gone, you are the leader of this second unit. We need you to come in and be dynamic. And also as the longest tenured Timberwolves player, he was here a year before Anthony Edwards. And so no one has been here longer. None of the leading front office executives were here. When Naz arrived, none of the coaches were here. When Naz arrived, he is the guy. And so he's also starting to take on a leadership role in terms of, Rob Dillingham, Terrence Shannon Jr., Jaylen Clark, a lot of the young guys that are kind of coming up now and getting some time with that second unit. Naz has taken them under his wing. And so when things were not going well, for him and for the bench in general, even as late as last week, Chris Finch was the one saying, look, we need more energy from our bench. We need more juice. It's not, that's been one of the missing elements of this. And Naz was the one who took accountability. He's like, yeah, it's me. Like, I have to be better defensively. I have to give more. I have to be more aggressive. And so he may not be Ant in terms of face of the franchise. He may not be Randall or Gobert in terms of all-star appearances and hundreds of millions of dollars made and all of these things, but he still very much is viewed as a pillar in that locker room. And so he has embraced that part of it. And now to see him start to come out of that funk and play better on both ends of the floor, not just against the cupcakes, which has been an issue for the Wolves, but also he played really well against Denver in that game. And so he knows that this team can't be really special unless he is doing everything that he is capable of doing. When you bring a 6'9", 240-pound guy off the bench that runs the floor and breaks down people off the dribble and shoots threes, not many teams have that. He makes them unique, and so he has embraced all of that. And so watching him navigate that and watching him try to assert himself in that way has been really cool. And I think it is a different role for him than any of the past 6 years were here, just in that how much he is being relied upon to be a driving force here.
He has picked up his offense. Is he picking up his interior defense at all right now?
A little bit, yes. Now, the sample size is too small to really look at the numbers and draw too much of a conclusion. But talking to Rudy Gobert, talking to Chris Finch about what they are seeing from him on that end of the floor, they're just seeing more force that he's playing with. He is blocking a few more shots. He is using his body to kind of move people out of the paint, whereas in the first couple of weeks they were just going right by him, right to the rim at will. And he's moving his feet better as well. And so one of the biggest issues that the Wolves were facing early this season is that when Rudy Gobert went off the floor, the defense just absolutely cratered. And it was always Naz Reid and Julius Randle in the front court, and there was no rim protection, and they were getting torched. And so Chris Finch has made a bit of a rotation adjustment where now Randle and Reid are playing a lot of times with Jaylen Clark and Jaden McDaniels, and that gives them a little bit more kind of ball pressure on the perimeter, and that's making things easier. But also Naz is just more active on that end, and he's had a couple of times already in the last 3 or 4 games where opponent is in transition. He's running them down and altering the shot at the rim. He is knocking people on their butts when they come into the paint, and just at least making them feel that he's there. And so I just think that's really, really important. I don't think that Julius and Naz are ever going to be a top flight defensive pairing, but they can be good enough to support what they are, which is a fantastic offensive group. When they're on the floor together, their offense rating's like 134. It's just like through the roof. And so as long as they don't become a sieve defensively, they can really make hay. And Naz's just overall energy on that end of the floor has taken a turn for the better in the last probably 3 to 4 games, I'd say.
I want to talk about my favorite player, Jaylen Clark. Let's get into him next. First, we do want to hear more about Alexis, Wayzata, and Maplewood.
If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than our good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they have got you covered with two great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to lexusofwayzata.com or lexusofmaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
Also want to thank TSR Injury Law. The good people at TSR Injury Law are very excited about their partnership with the Timberwolves, and they decided to launch the TSR Time Ultimate Giveaway. You can win a Naz Reid signed jersey. You can sit courtside with superfan Steve Terry. I think from now on, that's his complete official name.
Superfan Steve
Terry, every reference. Or you can get your face on a billboard. That would be a negative for me. For you, it might be a positive. Mike Nori, the Wolves' lead assistant coach, joined in the fun and shot a commercial as the unofficial TSR Time spokesperson. Apparently, Naz was busy. To enter, go to, let me make sure I get this right, go to Timberwolves.com/TSR, Timberwolves.com/TSR before December 2nd. That sounds like a lot of fun. Thanks to the good people at TSR for sponsoring that. We also want to thank Royal Credit Union.
There are many reasons to open a smart checking account at Royal Credit Union, including no monthly fees, no minimum balance, and a $250 bonus. Getting your $250 is easy. Open your account by December 9th. Receive 2 payroll direct deposits of $200 or more, and you'll get a $250 bonus. See details and open your account today at rcu.org/getchecking. No minimum balance required to obtain bonus. Offer ends 12/9/25. Insured by NCUA.
All right, so Jaylen Clark continues to come in, and is there going to be a point where opposing teams start game planning for not allowing him to make them look foolish when they're just trying to inbound the ball? Because right now it looks like every team is shocked that Jaylen Clark is just keeping them from getting the ball inbounds.
The element of surprise is definitely on his side right now. The scouting report has not leaked out to the rest of the league that he is doing this. And one of the players most well known for that is Jose Alvarado in New Orleans. They call it Grand Theft Alvarado, and he kind of hides in the corner and then comes and takes the ball away when the opponent doesn't see it. And Jaylen Clark is doing that as well. And you are seeing it be really disruptive. He is so smart. And he has such good instincts about when to do that, and when the opponent is just not really paying attention, and it's been really fun to watch, and it just is one of those things, Jim, that is a little thing that you're not going to see in a box score, but that really does affect the energy of the team and helps them win games. And then, not only that, but just the physicality that he plays with on the defensive end, the way that he's able to navigate screens. They really miss Nickeil Alexander-Walker in that regard, and him being able to take more of those duties against some of the top flight scorers and to get around screens the way that he does is really helpful to this team. And then he's always just like, he's chasing down offensive rebounds. He's making the extra pass to an open player. He makes the well-timed cut to the basket. Like, just been a really, really solid part of this team's guys. Shoot the ball a little bit better, but I really do think that'll come, and it's been really interesting to watch. Chris Finch was saying it the other day, he's a part of the rotation now. This is not some flash in the pan. This is not, just like kind of something for now. He has really asserted himself with Terrence Shannon injured, with Rob Dillingham struggling a bit. He is taking the reins of that 8th, 9th spot and making it his own, and it's been great for the Timberwolves. Watching
them play the Kings the other night, I had this thought. You can correct me if I'm wrong. He almost feels to me like the exact opposite of Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine was born to score a lot of points for terrible teams. Jaylen Clark feels like to me he was born to be like a 7th or 8th man on a good team.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. I caught up with Zach when Sacramento came in. It was great to talk to. He's a great kid. And he's a grown man now, but there's no one in the league I like to watch shoot the basketball more than Zach LaVine. It is a gorgeous shooting stroke. It goes in an incredible amount of time.
Better than Rudy?
Funny you mentioned this. Rudy was saying after the game against Dallas on Monday night, he's just like, hey, I asked him about, making plays in the pocket and making catches. And he said, hey, I could do whatever you want. I make the play. I make the pass. You want me to shoot a 3? If you prefer that, I will do that. So maybe we will see that eventually. But yeah, like Zach is like, he is Red Bull, he is Kool-Aid, and Jaylen Clark is the protein shake that you don't want to drink, but man, like this is what's best for us. And he gets out there and he just does like all of those little things that, there's a reason he's usually in the plus and the plus minus, even if he's scoring 4 points. Like he's able to affect games. And that's what this Wolves team needs the most, is that they are trying to claw back some remnants of their defensive identity. And for a lot of the first couple of weeks, like it just wasn't there. And then Clark is one of those guys that is just so tough and nasty and like grimy. And so, you can see the rest of the team feeding off of that energy. And yeah, those are things that win you games. Maybe they don't get you 150, 180, $200 million contracts, but you'll be in the league for a long, long time and make a plenty of money doing it the way that Jaylen Clark's doing it right now.
What is his high end? If his career continues to develop, if he adds more shooting efficiency to his game, what's his high end? Is he still a seventh man on a good team, or is there something else out there for him?
I mean, why couldn't he be Lou Dort?
Yeah.
To Lou Dort's credit, he made himself from a liability as a shooter to a guy who, he's not going to create his own, he's not going to go off the dribble, he's not going to do anything fancy. But when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander drives into the paint and attracts attention and kicks it out to an open Lou Dort who catches and shoots, he makes it. And so if Jaylen Clark can get to that point, and he shot like 40% from 3 last year on a short, low volume. But if Jaylen Clark can become a player who is just a reliable catch and shoot 3-point guy, he has all of the defensive chops and all of the physical traits to be a first or second team all defensive player. But you have to earn minutes to do that. And the way that he earns, like the way that he goes from, 20 minutes in a night to 28, 30, whatever, is by becoming a real threat as a shooter and making sure that he's a two-way player. And so I'm not ruling that out for him. That should be, I think, his pathway, and like his guiding star is like, let me be for the Timberwolves what Lou Dort is for the Thunder. And it's a very big role. Dort is, essential for what they've done and what they continue to do. And there's no skill set that he has that Jaylen Clark doesn't have or can't acquire. And so if you want to shoot for the moon, I would say, yeah, that's an absolutely realistic target for, a couple years down the road.
It's funny you mentioned Dort, because I remember I think it was the end of a season. I think it was the end of a bad season. It had to be at least 4 or 5 years ago, where a bunch of us are sitting in the press row watching OKC play the Wolves in Target Center. And
in the play-in or
no, I'm talking, this is like a meaningless game.
Okay.
It must have been right at the beginning of Dort's career. So if I had time to look it up, I could probably tell you what year. I just remember it was like me and Jace and maybe you and somebody else, like 3 or 4 of us sitting on a row. And we're just kind of not making fun of Lou Dort as a human or as a basketball player, but just the concept of a guy named Dort who looks like a nose tackle running around, knocking people over and missing shots. It was like, somebody let the image I have is like once I took my French bulldog, little tiny 22-pound round bag of bones, took him to a dog park, and these beautiful dogs just loping around at full speed. My dog's going, just like this, trying to keep up. It was hilarious. And we just had, Dort became like this word we use just to make fun of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
And now he's a rotation player on the best team in basketball. It can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And like they are physically similar builds. Like Jaylen Clark is a muscle bound, like tough, big dude. And I think one of the complaints about Lou Dort is that he is so physical and he gets away with so much. But to Dort's credit,
you tend to get away with stuff.
Yeah, he's established himself that way. He has a reputation now, and I think Clark is trying to establish the same type of reputation with officials. Is like, look, this is how I play. I put guys in the torture chamber. And not only that, but I also am able to chase them around and beat them to spots and deter them in that way as well. And so, I don't see him as a similar player to Caruso in terms of body type,
right.
But I do see that Dort physicality, that ability to just leave a bruise on your opponent's chest after the game and be like, man, that it hurt playing against him. And so, I just think that that's the kind of prototype that I see is a wing defender who, Nickeil, is an entirely different defender. Like he is a switchblade. He's skinny, he's lithe, and he moves around. And Jaylen Clark is a sledgehammer. And like that's both can be equally effective. And so that he is filling, Jaylen Clark is filling that role, that Nickeil role, just in a different way. But I really do believe that he can be just as disruptive or more. And if everything does fall into place, he does become that, pseudo starter. Dort's a starter on the Thunder, but like a pseudo starter on a very high level team that can give you enough offensively and then just be a menace defensively. And I think he's headed that way.
He's also, as we've said before, a great guy to talk to. He's one of those guys.
Awesome guy.
He doesn't, you can see that he's not going to calculate his answer. He's just going to tell you what he thinks, which is always fun. When in our business, that's always fun.
Very refreshing. And, I'll admit, like, last year or 2 years ago when he first was drafted and he's recovering from the Achilles tear and he's a late second round pick, comes in and like you heard him talking a lot in that locker room and you're like, man, this kid is not bashful for being a second round pick who's injured and not playing. Usually those guys are walking on eggshells and making sure I'm seen and not heard. That's not Jaylen Clark. And I think that's really important for the Wolves as well. They have a lot of players on their roster that are quiet. Julius Randle is quiet. Naz Reid is quiet. Jaden McDaniels is quiet. Mike Conley is even quiet in his own way. Rudy is just is more quiet. Like he talks, of course, but like just on the quieter side. Really the outsized personalities in that locker room are Ant, Joe Ingles, and Jaylen Clark. Like Clark is this. He fills the room with his laugh. With his the way that he talks, with his just unabashed spouting of opinions and crazy stuff. Like he brings a different element to it, and I think that's important when you look at the chemistry of a locker room and how the personalities match together. You need a few guys that aren't afraid to shoot from the hip and on a team of quieter dudes, and he's one of them for sure.
Yeah, I remember one of my favorite quotes from last year was somebody asked him, after he had a good game, he said, "Yeah, I thought it was going to be a sit down, shut up, and clap and go home."
Yes.
Game,
Yeah.
Good stuff.
That's right.
He's a cool guy. I wish him all the success he can have. Let's talk about the West. We've seen the Mavericks now make a big change. See Oklahoma City dominating again. I'm really interested. And as well as the Wolves have generally played early on here. They haven't beaten a good team yet, and they're right now in the 6th seed. A long way to go, but it's an interesting place to be. Let's take one more break to thank the businesses that help our business survive. We do appreciate them. Let's start with Princeton's Liquors.
Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove. Bill Princeton and the Princeton family have been selling everything that you could want on the liquor side of things for decades and decades. Go into Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove. Tell them that the Jon Krawczynski Show and Talk North sent you, and take advantage of the amazing selection of bourbon and craft beer that they do have at Princeton's Liquors. Those are their two specialties. You can get whatever you want, high priced, more affordable, unique, super well known, everything that you could want for bourbon and craft beer at Princeton's Liquors. They, of course, also have wine, spirits. They have THC seltzers and gummies. They have everything that you need in that regard. We're coming up on the holiday season. You're usually going to have a little something to drink with your family or friends as you're gathering. Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove is the place to go to stock up. Make sure you're ready for the holiday season.
Thanks also to True Vision Institute.
True Vision Institute in Bloomington. Funny story for y'all. I walked into the Dallas Mavericks locker room before the game on Monday night, and I saw D'Angelo Russell, and we caught up for a while and talked. They had a great conversation. The first thing he did, he looked at me and said, "Oh, did you have LASIK?" I'm like, "Yeah, I had True Vision. They sponsored the podcast right now." And so he was noticing. Everyone notices. I do not wear glasses anymore. My life is so much easier since I went to True Vision and had the LASIK surgery. And so I strongly encourage you, if you're thinking about it, go to chuvision.com, CHUvision.com, set up a consultation, go on in there. They will, the great people at Chew will put you through an entire assessment to see what is best for your vision correction needs. They will take unbelievable care of you. They will make it super easy to navigate this whole process, and you will come out on the other side of it looking great, feeling great, and really having your life completely changed. So if D'Angelo Russell notices it on me, everyone's going to notice it on you when you get it. Go to chuvision.com and set up your consultation today.
We'll do Twitter questions sponsored by Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops Clothing Line. At the end of the show, tell us about Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops Clothing Line.
SGLambchops.com is the place to go for the best casual wear that you can find. Jordan and Craig are at these games, at Timberwolves games and Lynx games all of the time. I met Jordan's father last night. He was wearing Lamb Chops gear and looking great doing it. They have collaborations with the Timberwolves. They have just super comfortable, super high quality stuff that you can wear at home, lounging around, that you can wear out for a night in the North Loop hanging out. It's so versatile. Use the promo code JONK20 at SGLambchops.com to get 20% off anything that you order at Lamb Chops. Lambchops.com, promo code JONK20 for 20% off everything you get there.
So the Mavericks fire the general manager, Nico Harrison. I will say, the consensus was they made a terrible deal. I understood they did not get enough for an incredible talent. I had some sympathy for an organization watching a guy not get in shape and constantly be injured. I had some sympathy for them not wanting to give him the huge contract. But I think the way Nico Harrison kind of managed the messaging and tried to kind of hide, I thought he mismanaged the aftermath of the deal as badly as he managed the deal. You could tell within a week after that deal, he wasn't going to last. I'm surprised he lasted as long as he did.
Yeah, 100%, Jim. Like there is a world where you can justify the decision to trade Luka Doncic. It's not an argument that you're going to win, from a lot of people because he has been such a great player for them. But there's two things that can happen. One is you cannot just talk to one team and just get, one player that you really liked and then one draft pick for a generational star. So they messed up the return to an enormous degree. But if you are going to make the decision, the very controversial one, to trade the face of the franchise, an iconic player, he and Dirk Nowitzki are by far the two most popular and most well accomplished players in Mavericks history. And if you're going to make that decision, you have to have a plan for engaging with your audience, with your fan base, explaining and then listening and hearing them out and going through the whole process. It doesn't mean you, just because the fans don't want Luka traded, that you don't trade him, but you have to do a much, much better job of explaining yourself, of being available, of being transparent with it. And what happened in this trade was they make the deal, shock everyone in the world, and then Nico Harrison has a 9-minute press conference the next day and doesn't talk for 72 days. And look, man, that's not understanding the fan base. That's not understanding the connection that they have with the player and the team and all of those things. And if you looking at it from the outside, one of the things that I think is a positive about an incredibly unfortunate situation is that maybe this is a test case that organizations look at and say, you know what? Our fans still do matter. And we're raising the ticket prices on them, and they pay all this money for streaming games, and they have to have 8 different streamers, and it's harder than ever to get an NBA game. But we cannot alienate them and just treat this as some global nameless corporation that makes decisions based on, metrics and analytics and this and that. We have to understand that this is a very human thing, that there are strong connections to these players with these fan bases, and the Mavericks just incredibly underestimated that whole aspect of it. And it showed even more that it wasn't just Nico Harrison that underestimated, it was the ownership too, because they started the season with Nico Harrison like it was going to be fine, like the fans were going to move on, like this was okay. And so they eventually fired him because they had to, because the fans made them. And I think too often the power of the fan and the importance of the fan has been really reduced in this modern era of pro sports. And this was a case of reminding people that if you don't engage with them, if you don't respect them, if you treat them as if they will keep coming to your games just because, you're going to get burned. And Nico Harrison got burned badly.
If I remember correctly, too, after all that waiting time, after the 9-minute press conference and waiting 72 days to talk, I think the next time he did talk, it was like a no cameras, and
yes,
you can't. And I can't remember if he let print reporters record the conversation or not. He must have, but
he initially was not going to. They
right.
initially were going to say no, and we'll put out a transcript. And the print guys are like, well, no. Like, who knows how you're going to alter that
right.
that transcript? And so they eventually relented on it. But that was the initial plan. Yes.
Incredible. Mm-hmm. I'm always just shocked. And I've been doing this a long time. I've been in this market for 36 years in Dallas before I came here. And I'm constantly shocked at how organizations that are public entities that depend on the goodwill of taxpayers and people just spending their own hard-earned money, just how blind they can be, just how they are perceived and how what they do is perceived. Not everybody. I don't want to make it a blanket thing, but how often it happens.
Yeah, the most shocking quote that came out of that whole saga was that Nico Harrison, and I'm paraphrasing here, basically saying, I knew that Luka was important to the fans. I didn't know that he was this important. It's like, well, then why are you working here? Yeah. Like, what are you doing? If that's the case, it'd be like the Timberwolves trading Ant for some 32-year-old guy who's always injury prone. Like there would be, exactly. There would be a revolt that on the level of the Dallas revolt, and like not. I'll say this, like, for the Timberwolves is specifically, and how they are different is, I do know that as they navigated the Naz Reid contract negotiations this summer, there is an argument when you look at it and say, Naz Reid is not going to start for us. We have Julius Randle. We have Rudy Gobert. Do we want to be given a bench player $125 million? Is that the best allocation of our resources? Could we, trade him or move on from him and use that money differently elsewhere? There probably is. But one of many things, first and foremost, they love the player. They think he can really help them. They think he can impact winning at a high level. But there was also some discussion internally as they figured things out, like, hey, Naz is really, really important to this community. The fans love him. They have been inspired by the way that he came in as an undrafted guy and built himself into a great player. And they, if he were to leave, it would be heartbreaking. I mean, how many fans have tattoos of Naz Reid? Like hundreds and hundreds. So
Steve Carey has a stamp, a tramp stamp.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah. And so that did factor in a little bit as they tried to get over the finish line of is this too much? Is this not? You know what? It's Naz Reid. He is important to this community, to this team, to this fan base. And so they understood that, that there would be a lot of people who would be very, very sad to see him go. You can't make decisions based solely on the fans. You'll be, you'll get in real trouble that way. But you need to at least understand what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and how it will hit with them. And I think the Wolves did a great job with that in the Naz Reid process of just understanding that, hey, this guy is unique here. And he means a lot to people here. Let's keep going. Let's keep him here because he's just an important part of this. And, to not do that with a player of the level of Luka Doncic is just it's a dereliction of duty that has rarely been seen.
One thing I heard behind the scenes at one point was that there were analytics people who weren't sure about Naz Reid. Mm-hmm. And Tim Connolly was like, I think he's a really good player. I think he's going to get even better. He's like, you have to, every organization has to use analytics to yes. double check everything, make sure you're not missing something. But I love the fact Tim Connolly's like, no, he's a good player. We're keeping him. And I'm guessing Chris Finch was in that corner as well.
Yeah. Finch likes to say one of his favorite things to say about analytics is they use it as a guide, not a god.
Right.
And so, I do think that there are some analytics like that. And you look at, Naz and Julius in the front court, there's analytics that say it's really not good that way. And there's plenty of it. And you do have to keep that in mind, and you do have to watch it closely while you're making these decisions, because they can help you. But I do think that, yes, sometimes you do have to step back and be, wait a minute, look, this is the sixth man of the year. He can put the ball on the deck. He can get to the hole. He can hit threes. He is working on his defense. He can play 3, 4, or 5, depending on matchups out there. What are we talking about here? This is a really good player. And, oh, by the way, we developed him. He's one of the greatest development stories in Timberwolves history. We have poured all these resources and all of this investment into him, and he's put the work in to get him here. Why do we want to say goodbye to someone like that? I think that sometimes that sort of big picture, assessment of the situation of the player, it does help to provide clarity when you're making these really, really difficult decisions.
Also helps. He's a good guy. He's very coachable. Yeah. Good relationship with Finch. Good organizational guy. I mean, all that stuff plays into it.
Yeah, he brings everything, and I would like it. This kind of was underscored to me last night after the Mavericks game. He has a really good game. He's played a few good games in a row that he's starting to come around. And you talk to Rudy, you talk to Dante DiVincenzo, you talk to Ant, you talk to people, and you say, hey, what does it mean to see Naz going like this? And they light up. Mm-hmm. They just believe so much in what Naz can do. And they understand that he is a unicorn in some ways, of just his size, his nimble footwork, his skill level. And they understand that, for instance, against Dallas last night, they're playing a really shorthanded team on the second night of a back-to-back. That team has been put through the ringer. And so they're actually in the game to start the game against the starters. The starters are a little flat. It's the Mavericks, who cares kind of thing. And so the starters are like, it's 17-13 midway through the first quarter. You're like, all right, we're hanging around. This is good. And then you see this monster walk into the scorers table, and think about your Brandon Williams or your, these guys who know they're overmatched already. And then, your second unit includes this guy. Like, this is what we have to face. There's no break when Naz Reid comes into the game and when he's playing well. And so they just are trying their most to like gas him up and get him going, because they know that Naz Reid makes us special and makes us different. And so that sort of like status in that locker room is, it's cemented, and it's just really, really important to the whole identity of this group.
Let us get to the West. The Wolves are currently in the 6th seed, half game behind San Antonio. So you got OKC, 14-1, Denver, Houston, Lakers, San Antonio. We've seen the Wolves in this situation before. We've seen them get to the Western Conference in a very difficult conference twice in a row. The interesting thing about the 5 teams ahead of them is they all have superstars, and they're all a little scary. Yeah,
they are. I mean, I will say so far, the West has been different in some ways than what I anticipated, in terms of, like, I thought coming into this that it was going to be like 1 through 11, just a gauntlet. Like, every single night it was going to be teams that you're just going to be fighting tooth and nail against, and that there's going to be no breaks in the schedule in the West, and that it's going to be a meat grinder that way. And it may eventually kind of emerge that way, but you look at Dallas is a complete disaster. Sacramento is a disaster. Utah is plucky, but still, I think, young and not quite ready. New Orleans is a disaster. Like, a lot of the teams that I thought at least would be,
Memphis, the Jaws stuff.
Memphis, exactly. The Clippers are terrible. Another team that look old and slow. And so all of a sudden it has sort of shaped up differently, where, like, I think that the bottom 5 or 6 are actually not threats at all. But then I didn't think the Lakers were going to be this good, and they look really, really good. And LeBron hasn't even played yet. He's just coming back. I thought the Spurs were another year away. Wemby's hurt right now, but when Wemby is there and when Dylan Harper's there, like, they're really difficult right now. The Houston looks great. Denver looks awesome. Denver looks so good. Oklahoma City looks unbeatable. And so I think the top 5 to 6 in the West is as difficult as you could possibly imagine. And this will be a real test all the way through. But I haven't seen the depth of the conference that I thought we were going to see. And that's just going to be interesting to see how all of this shakes out right now. The Wolves are 9-0 against teams under 500 and 0-5 against teams 500 or better. And so they have to start winning some of these tougher games against tougher opponents, but they have done a good job so far of handling the lesser teams, which they hadn't done before. And there are more lesser teams than I thought there were going to be.
The last good team they played, I believe, was the Nuggets. And you said the Nuggets are playing incredibly well right now. What did you think the Wolves lacked in that game?
I'm not going to say second night of a back-to-back as an excuse, because the Nuggets were missing 2 starters as well. So that's kind of like a wash is what I look at. I mean, the Wolves were clearly tired, but they played well for the first 3 quarters. They held the lead, and ultimately 2 things happened. The Nuggets really did dig in and won the minutes with Jokic off the floor that they usually get destroyed in. And so having Valanciunas, having Hardaway, having Bruce Brown, having a better bench really did, like, usually the Wolves can wear the Nuggets down and just, like, with their depth and, like, get into their bench and just and crush that way. That did not happen. And then the second thing is, which is again more anomalous, is Ant couldn't shoot. Like, and Ant and Dante both were, I think, a combined like 1 for 9 from 3 or something like that, or 1 for 11. And like, that's just not going to happen very often, but you're not going to beat a really good Denver team if Anthony Edwards isn't on his game. I still don't think the Nuggets have anyone to guard Anthony Edwards, but when Edwards isn't making them pay with, 3-pointers and getting to the basket and doing things that way, it's just going to be really, really hard to beat them. So I walked out of that game not as sort of like crestfallen as a lot of probably fans were, like, oh man, here they go again. They blew it against a good team and maybe they're fraudulent. I don't think that at all. I just think that they just got shooting nights from 2 of their best shooters that are not going to happen almost ever the rest of the season. And then Denver did flex with that bench like we are not used to seeing.
Good stuff. Let us get to Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops clothing line, a portion of the show.
Yeah, let me find it here. I had it right in front of me. So here, this one is from Ibrahim. Given the current struggles against top teams in the league, do you believe an acquisition needs to be made before the deadline in order to have a chance at a run? If so, who would you target? And as of right now, Ibrahim, I don't think we are at a point where you say the Wolves have to do something. I want to see it play out for a lot longer before you look at disrupting the chemistry and the continuity of this team. They've said that is the biggest thing that they are leaning on. It is looking great for them offensively. I think that the chemistry and that continuity is really paying off that way. They're moving the ball. They're shooting well in the most part. They're making plays for each other. And so I'm just not at the point of 5 losses against really good teams, a couple of them without Edwards and Jaylen Clark. I'm not gonna put too much into that. If it does persist, I will say, like, I know a lot of people look at point guard. I'm kind of looking at backup center right now. I'm kind of looking at maybe something of more of a rebounder, rim protector type of a player, as maybe even a little bit more important than point guard, because Julius and Naz are showing signs of being better defensively, but they still do give up a lot of points when Rudy is off the floor. And so who that is, I'm not sure, but and I don't believe that they're going to make a move anytime soon. But I do think that, if they just can't kind of get really on track and start really playing well against good teams and bad, that might be a place they look at. I know they have Behringer. He's still just really, really young. Chris Finch did say that he was going to play in Iowa pretty soon. And so I think that is not quite the option just yet that's ready. He will be eventually, but if there is a veteran, big, strong dude who can protect the rim a little bit and grab some boards with that second unit, that might be a place that they look at eventually if things don't really get clicking here.
Yeah, I agree completely with that answer. Do you have any other Twitter questions you want to get to today?
I kind of hinted at it a little bit, but there was one guy who said, what's the plan for the Wolves to get Behringer going? It would seem like he would help the second unit's defense. And I will say that just a few games ago, probably maybe 4 or 5 games ago, when the defense was just really getting worked over, I do think we are getting a little bit closer to an experimentation with Behringer getting a few minutes in the second unit, and then Naz Reid playing more 3 than 4 or 5. But we have seen the defense start to show a little bit of a pulse. Like Chris Finch said earlier this week, that we got up off the mat at least, and now it's time to start throwing some punches. And so Finch did talk after the Dallas game about getting Behringer some minutes in Iowa to just play, which I think is really important. Again, like, he's only been playing basketball for 4 years, and so he's still very, very raw. And you watch him out there in the kind of the garbage time minutes, he's really, really excited, as a young kid should be. And I think that they need someone that's just a little bit more calm and collected. And so I think giving him some time in Iowa will help him just maybe get his legs underneath him and figure out where exactly he can do the most damage. And then I do think eventually this season, there probably will be times where we do see him on the court in non-garbage time minutes for the Wolves if the trajectory of his development continues to go at an incredibly fast pace, which is what's happening so far. They love Baron J. They think that he's going to be a really, really good player, but he just turned 19 like last week. And so similar to Dillingham, similar to JJ McCarthy, this is a team that wants to win games right now. And so I think that it's going to be a little while before you see Baron J playing 12 minutes in of high leverage, 12 high leverage minutes in a game. But just getting him to Iowa will be a good start. And then we'll see what happens after a few games down there and maybe he comes up and is a little bit more ready, but nothing right now, but he will get his chance. Trust me, Jason Dallaire, he will get his chance. He's got to be a little patient.
I just love the way he moves. You just see a big
absolutely.
Man with that footwork and just the natural timing, ability to block shots without fouling. You can see it, man.
Mm-hmm. He's going to be there. Like I really do believe it. I think he's going to be a starter in this league for a very long time. It's just going to take a little bit of time for him to get his bearings and figure things out. The other thing I really like about him is that, yes, he is a little skinny, but he's not a beanpole.
No, he looks like an athlete.
Yeah, he's got some muscle on him. He's got some heft to him. So he certainly will need to add weight. But when Giannis came into the league, he was like rail thin, and then put on all this weight. I'm not saying he's going to be honest, but but Baron J has come in and he is already a grown adult. And he's only going to get bigger and stronger from here. And that's really a really tantalizing thing to think about.
Good stuff, John. I appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who listens. Thanks to everyone who watches on YouTube. Thanks to our sponsors. We wouldn't exist without them. We wouldn't be able to grow the network. We wouldn't be able to do all this cool stuff. So thank you to everybody who's helped us succeed. We do appreciate it. And we will talk to you. Oh, sorry, John. Yes.
One last reminder, December 20th.
Oh, I forgot to prompt you on my bad.
At Headflyer, we will be the next Jon Krawczynski live show. At Headflyer, December 20th. We'll send out more details on timing. I think we are going to have a special guest locked in. By that time, we will announce it when we're ready. Crunch Time beer is on sale now at Headflyer, so go on in there. And if you buy Crunch Time off the tap, it part of the proceeds benefits Second Harvest Heartland. A lot of food insecurity issues right now as we get into the holidays. So every little bit helps. Have yourself a beer and give to a good cause in Second Harvest Heartland. So Headflyer Brewing in Northeast Minneapolis. We will see you there on December 20th.
It's right on Hennepin. It's really easy to get to. It's a great place to hang out. If you haven't been to one of the live shows, John does a great job with them. Headflyer does a great job. Lots of people show up. It's a really cool, fun crowd. I highly recommend the experience. I won't be there, so you have another reason to go. No, they're great. So thank you to Headflyer. Thanks to John for putting on good live shows. And again, we'll talk to you on this show next week.